Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Who is wrong? 53,000 junior doctors or Jeremy Hunt?
Who's wrong? 53,000 junior doctors or Jeremy Hunt? Nigel Farage.
Well, I think the object of the government was to address a problem. And the problem was that more people were dying on Saturdays and Sundays. That's a fact. One of the reasons for that was the imposition of the Working Time Directive, which the National Health found very difficult to adjust to. However, so the government's objectives in making sure that in England, and we're in Wales here, and the situation in Wales is different, but the government's objective to try to get the National Health Service to be as safe and as brilliant as it is 7 days a week is clearly the right one. However, whether they've gone about it the right way is another question. When I first heard about this, junior doctors, you sort of think of 23-year-olds after their degree, and I thought, well, OK, if they have to work hard and they're poorly paid for a couple of years, they do go on quite quickly to well-paid jobs. Actually, the truth is that a junior doctor is anybody below the level of consultant. So you could have somebody who's 45 years old, with a family, and who is facing such a drastic cut to their overtime pay that actually they really wouldn't be very well paid at all. So the government is right to try and get 7-day-a-week health care, but I think they've gone about it in an insensitive manner.
OK. Ramesh Ranganathan.
I mean, with regards to Jeremy Hunt, considering he's working with doctors, his bedside manner has been appalling. I think... I don't think there's any debate that the issues needed to be addressed, but the way he has handled this, if you're talking about doctors' morale, what he's done has been, I think, unacceptable. What's happened is that the offer's been made to junior doctors, they've rejected it, and it's been enforced upon them. And he's made comments about the fact that that they need to think more carefully about going on strike. They haven't entered into those decisions lightly. Nobody is striking on a whim. It hasn't happened for a long time. These people have done it because they feel seriously about the situation. And the long-term effects on who is going to go into medicine, I think, are going to be felt by the fact that he's enforcing this contract. I don't think it's right. And actually, we're now getting into this weird situation where doctors are going to have a different contract in England than they are going to have in different countries in the UK. And, David Cameron makes comments about the Welsh NHS. Ironically, we're probably going to have a few English doctors moving over to Wales to take up the better contracts that are over here.
Okay. Stephen Crabb.
I think the government and the doctors want exactly the same thing out of the new contract. We want a contract which gives dignity to the junior doctors who shoulder an enormous burden in delivering high-quality care within the NHS, and they do it 7 days a week. But the question that we're trying to address is how we extend a uniform excellence, not just Monday to Friday, but Nigel is right on this point, in Saturdays and Sundays, to address the weekend effect. Now, Aneurin Bevan, when he founded the NHS, he had this concept of the universalisation of the best. So the best shouldn't just be sporadic. We should actually try and spread that evenly across the NHS. And actually, in what we're trying to do in addressing the weekend effect, so that Saturdays and Sundays, equally high care is being given to patients from Monday, as with Monday to Friday. That is the right thing to do. But there's more than that. The current contract, everybody agrees, is not fit for purpose. You see junior doctors working up to 91 hours continuously during the week. It leads to a lot of stress on junior doctors. There's a lot of good reasons for addressing the current contract. And just because Welsh Government isn't having this tussle at the moment with the junior doctors and the BMA trade union doesn't mean that the same issues aren't going to have to be faced head-on at some point in Wales and in Scotland. But we've taken a decision as a government to address this 7-day issue to ensure that we get better outcomes for patients in the NHS.
Ramesh was saying it hasn't been well handled by the Secretary of State for Health. What do you say to that? Has it been?
Well, if you look at all the shifts that the government have made in terms of providing concessions to the doctors, and the contract that will be introduced now, 90% of that has already been agreed in negotiations with the BMA. So there's a lot in that contract that the junior doctors will welcome. The sticking point that we got to was around the status of Saturday. Is Saturday going to be a normal working day, or is it going to be treated as unsocial hours?
But then the opposite argument is true. If you're that close, why not renegotiate and get it to a point where the doctors are happy with it?
Because there's something else going on here. And having said what I'd said about the junior doctors, where I think there's been some intransigence and unreasonableness is on the part of the BMA. And if you look at the history of the NHS, every single reforming Secretary of State for Health, be it a Labour Party Secretary of State for Health or a Conservative, and it goes right back to the days of Nyron Bevan, at some point or other, comes up against the intransigence of the BMA. And that's the history of it.
All right. Did you agree with this? Carwyn Jones.
Look,
the BMA is the problem.
When you have junior doctors on strike, it's a sign of abject failure. And it's not happening there. We haven't always agreed with the BMA. You know, there have been times when we've disagreed with each other. That's in the nature of things. But we've never had a situation where doctors have felt that they have to go on strike, that they have to stand outside hospitals with placards saying, "Save the NHS." And now there's even talk of consultants doing the same. Now, if you look at what's happened in Wales, we see, for example, that there are fewer people in Wales now who are stuck in hospital waiting to go home. It's the opposite in England. We see a situation where we spend more on health per head in Wales than in England. We're seeing waiting times going up in England. £3 billion was hosed away on reorganisation in England. We're not having that in Wales. We want to make sure that our people get the right access to health services, and that means making sure that morale is high amongst our doctors. We're seeing morale dropping in England. I've got no compunction in saying to junior doctors, come to Wales, you will be treated with respect.
Well, that might be a good idea, Carwyn.
Yeah, I mean, we're already onto it.
Because you've got 50,000 Welsh patients who, because your cancer care provisions are so poor,
actually got better cancer figures in England.
Actually went to England.
Cancer figures in
Actually went to England.
50,000
and on every measure,
that is utterly and completely
in the United Kingdom,
that is baloney of the highest order.
Absolute rubbish. Hang on, don't speak. Wait a minute, listen.
On every measure.
Both of you.
Let me just
wait, will you, please? If two of you speak at once, nobody here and nobody at home can hear a word of what you're saying. So it's completely pointless. So take Nigel's intervention, then you can comment on it. Nigel, what were you saying?
Well,
let Nigel make his
50,000
intervention.
people from Wales went to England
rubbish.
to get healthcare last year.
Don't interrupt
and they
him.
did it because, actually, in the whole of... I know you're embarrassed about this, and it's awkward for you. But the truth is...
Utterly untrue again.
Well, again, you won't listen, will you? Because you've clearly got a lot to hide.
Not the nonsense,
truth of it is that on every measure of waiting times and healthcare provision, Wales is the failing part of the National Health Service in the whole of the United Kingdom.
That is complete and utter nonsense.
OK, hold on. All right, Carwyn, briefly, if you would.
We do better on cancer. We don't have 50,000 people going to England for cancer care. You've made that figure up, quite frankly. Unless you can tell me where it's from, then I'm afraid you've made that figure up.
We did this the other week, didn't we?
Yeah, and you were on then as well. You claimed that a German chancellor who you couldn't name would come up with a figure that 75% of laws were made. You make things up as you go along.
84%, I said.
You make things... Oh, it's 84?
It was, yes.
And you couldn't name the chancellor?
All right,
You couldn't name the chancellor.
let's leave this
At the end of the day,
local
we
dispute.
are not going to
I'm going to go to the woman there in
David Cameron's chaos here in Wales.
All right, the woman in spectacles there. Leanne, I'll come to you in a second.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I want to address something to Nigel Farage. I received cancer care at Prince Philip Hospital here in Llanelli last year. The treatment I received was second to none. I had a referral from my GP to the unit that I was being treated at. I was seen within 10 days. I'm going back for a scan on Monday, and I have actually heard now that statistics for referrals for urgent cancer care, these statistics have just come out. Those referral times are going down, which is something that I think we should be celebrating here in Wales.
OK.
I'm going to... Fine,
all right, no, Nigel, no, please. I want to bring us back to Alice Lee's question, which is, who is wrong, 53,000 junior doctors or Jeremy Hunt? Leanne?
I agree with the junior doctors, and I think Jeremy Hunt is wrong.
So are you against the 7-day NHS?
Doctors work 7 days now.
No,
they work 7 days now. No,
Friday,
they take
Saturdays
it
and Sundays equal quality of outcomes.
They take it as a real insult when your government suggests that in some way they're being lazy on the weekend.
Nobody's saying that. Nobody is saying that.
That's the impression that you were giving. But I also have to say, you know, there are protesters outside Welsh hospitals as well because of Labour's centralisation plans. And whilst we need extra doctors in Wales, and this is a good opportunity for the Welsh Government to get them, because in Wales We have fewer doctors per head of the population than all but 3 European Union countries. So we need to do a lot more in terms of planning for doctors, and Plaid Cymru's proposals for 1,000 extra doctors in the Welsh NHS has been rubbished by the First Minister on the basis that pretty much he's in denial that we don't have enough staff in our hospitals. So the Royal College of Medicine recently warned that Wales's A&E departments are on the edge due to increasing demand and staff shortages. So I welcome the First Minister saying today now that he's got a plan to try and recruit extra doctors who've been on strike in England, and I'm glad that he's come round to Plaid Cymru's way of thinking on this question.
OK. I'm going to hear from some members of our audience. Yes, you know what you said, with spectacles there in the middle there. Yes, on the doctors, please.
Mr Crabb, I qualified in medicine in 1976, and you're quite right to point out that there have been a number of difficulties with Secretary of States since that time. Over the last 40 years, none have got such a lack of respect as the current Secretary of State, Mr Hunt. He has at best been disingenuous because, as Mr Farage pointed out, there is increased mortality at weekends, but there is nothing that's been suggested or proven to show that that's related to any lack of junior doctors at that time. It's multifactorial. They work hard 7 days a week, and by imposing this contract on them will, I hope, help the serious recruitment problem that we have here in Wales.
All right, and now I come to you in the front here, yes, the woman here in the front.
Clearly we're focusing on doctors tonight, but they're not actually going to be working on their own. What about what's going to come next? The extra contracts, the nurses, the cleaners, the porters, etc. Seems to be we're starting with the doctors. What's happening next?
So what do you suspect is happening? What do you think is happening?
Well, with regards to the nurses' contracts, obviously they're going to have to be looked at. Everyone's contract working within the NHS at the weekends is going to have to be addressed. We're talking about the junior doctors right now, but this is going to cipher all the way down.
Carmen Jones? And what's your view of this 7-day working for the NHS too?
Well, I haven't noticed in my local hospital that it shuts its doors at 5 o'clock on a Friday and opens again on Monday morning, I have to say.
Nobody's saying that.
We know that hospitals already work 7 days a week, and what Stephen is saying is this. His government, the government he's a member of, negotiates with people, and if there's no agreement, they impose a settlement anyway. Well, that's not negotiation, and that's not the way we're going to do things in Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland, I've no doubt, will also take the same approach, because we want to work with our doctors, not impose new terms on our doctors. We can see the chaos that's being created in the NHS. Now, to the point that the gentleman here made, we have more doctors in Wales now than ever. We have more nurses than ever. That doesn't mean there aren't challenges. Of course there are. We know, for example, that in A&E, demand goes up by 7.5% every year, and meeting that demand can be difficult. But we spend more per head on health in Wales than is the case in England.
We've got fewer doctors per head of the population than almost every other country in the EU.
We have more doctors.
Romania,
well, let's sort this out.
Slovenia.
Is she right or are you right?
No, I don't accept that at all, because we have more doctors than ever
Well, facts
before.
are true, but is it a fact?
We have world-leading centres. We have world-leading centres such as Cancer Genetics in Cardiff, the Burns Unit, and in Morriston and Swansea, that are world leaders. What we want to do, of course, is to attract people into Wales who are medically qualified, but we will not do it on the basis of saying to our medical profession, you come into Wales, you can talk to us, but we'll never listen to you.
Tell me how many countries in the EU have got more doctors per head of the population than Wales.
You're making the decision, you say it.
Well, no, there is Romania, Poland and Slovenia are the 3 countries that have fewer doctors per head of the population than we do here in Wales. You've just told me that that isn't a correct fact.
Stephen Crabb, you're the Secretary of State for Wales. You know the facts and figures. Is she right or wrong?
It might sound like I'm ducking the question, but health is fully devolved to Welsh Government. So the statistics that Leanne mentions, I'm not familiar with those details.
But you're Secretary of State for Wales. Surely you follow what's going on here.
The point is here that... Carl Wyn-Jones might not have the BMA knocking on his door, having an argument with him about delivery of health services, but hardly a month goes by where there aren't protests going on outside the Assembly buildings by patients and families who are sick and tired of the reorganisation of A&E, maternity services, paediatrics. There's plenty of problems there that he needs to focus on.
I'm going to move on to... just take a point from you, sir, up there, and then you've had a hand up sometime. Yes, you too, and then you there, and then we go on. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Just make the point briefly, if you would.
Is it not glaringly obvious that at the turn of the millennium, a previous government car crashed the GP services? And as a consequence, people are turning up in A&E, thereby increasing the onus on the hospital service. And another fact that seemed glaringly obvious to me, that you have agency staff being paid a fortune. Why not put these junior doctors into the salaries and thereby funding the jobs the right way around, not the backwards way around?
Okay.